Today is bread day, but not just Wonder Bread or even Ezekiel bread or any bread that has flour, yeast, or anything that makes it rise like baking soda. This is a totally different kind of bread called Stone Age bread. And I got it from a recipe in David Perlmutter's book. It's called Brainwash. So it's all foods that are really good for your brain. So it's all good for us. So bread has been around as long as human beings have probably, but the way we make it, this is a like fancy stove way of fixing things. So we start out with all nuts and seeds. So these were measured. This is a little scale that you can use, and the recipe calls for 3.5 ounces of these 5 different ingredients. But I also went to the trouble of just taking a good old-fashioned measuring cup and seeing how much 3.5 ounces amounts to. And it's roughly 2/3 of a cup. So either way, if you want to measure it 3.5 ounces or just go by 2/3 of a cup, you'll be okay. So we're going to start with 3.5 ounces of slivered almonds. It's hard not to just taste all these things while we're getting good ingredients. 3.5 ounces of sunflower seeds. Of course, all these should be organic and not salted and processed in any way. 3.5 ounces of flaxseed. You know, there's golden flaxseed and brown. It doesn't matter for this recipe. And the same thing with flaxseed. It can be white or it can be not so white. 3.5 ounces of sesame seeds here. And then 3.5 ounces of walnuts. So we have 2 nuts and 3 seeds. Then we take 2 teaspoons of a really good salt. So I always use my Premier Research Labs Himalayan pink sea salt. And so probably I'm just going to mix up the dry ingredients by themselves. Do you remember the old-fashioned way when we used to make muffins, when you put all the dry ingredients and then you made a hole and then you put the milk and the liquid ingredients in them? Don't have to do that here. But here comes my 1/2 cup of really good olive oil. And then here's the kicker that makes it so different from so many breads. It's 5 eggs. 5 really good organic eggs. It looks crazy to have all this liquid with these nuts and no flour. But it works. So it's going to look really liquidy, and when we put it in the pan, it's going to look like this could never turn out to be bread. It's going to be dense, and it's going to be rich and nourishing. It's not one of those where we take the eggs or the egg yolks and we froth them all up and make like a souffle. Not with this. It's kind of a dense and heavy bread. Okay, that's all there to it. No yeast to rise, no settling anything. Now this is another part that's a little unusual. You take a 9x5 baking or pan. You're going to take parchment paper, and then you're going to cut it to size, and then you're going to take butter, and you're just going to whisk that across. Again, it's dense. You know, and I remember from my old bread baking days, one of the first things you do when you take the bread out of the oven is slather it with fresh butter. So, and it makes it totally delicious. Okay, here we go. Looks like porridge or soup. And it has a really strange consistency. You know, it's all sloppy like this, like Jell-O that's not set. Okay, but now the directions are, we've taken this and we're going to put it in a 325-degree oven for 1 hour. So here we go. Let's check it out. Great. Now that I'm tasting this, I think it would be really fun to add cranberries or raisins to give it a little extra punch. You could also use this because it's so heavy in protein. It's all nuts. I mean, it's walnuts and almonds and the flaxseed, which is another thing that binds it together. And sesame seeds and sunflower seeds. It's loaded with protein. So it would be a good after-school snack. with just a little butter, and if you want to put just a layer of the thinnest non-sugared strawberry jam or orange or fresh oranges or fresh apples would probably taste good on here too. It's a really new thing to add to your repertoire, and it tastes delicious.